Hello. Today's video is going to be a little different from what I usually post. Now we're gonna get into religion and spirituality. I never would have thought that I'd still be in school at 27. I did initially turn to veganism because I was trying to recover from an eating disorder. My first day at my fashion internship was yesterday. Basically, you're not ugly, you're just poor. A lot of you probably think I'm crazy now, but sorry, that's just my personal opinion. If you're new here, I usually post fashion and travel vlog style content, but I really just wanted to sit down and kind of talk about the stage of life that I'm in and the things that I'm kind of observing about myself and the people in the world around me. And maybe no one cares what I have to think, but I just really wanted to film a video where I just sat down and kind of talked to the camera. I've got my tea, I've got my makeup brushes, I've got Pinterest opened to a couple makeup looks, got some fun pink pastel eyeshadows, I've got this darker palette as well, so I think I'm gonna do some sort of like colorful watercolor type of look. I never do fun makeup, so this will be interesting to see how this goes, but I'm excited. This is Luna. For those of you who don't know, my name is Olivia. I'm 24 years old, turning 25 in February. I'm a Pisces tattoo, and I'm currently a junior in college, but I'm planning on switching to the BFA at my school. So I might have to stay an extra year and graduate when I'm 27 years old, which sounds like a scary thought to me because when I was younger, I never would have thought that I'd still be in school at 27, but my first year out of high school, I went to one semester of fashion school in New York, and then I dropped out, and then I came home and I did community college for the next 5 years, on and off, just very lightly, while I worked and kind of explored my interests. This semester already has been very different for me because I actually have friends. I am very used to just doing everything all by myself. I would just go to class and go home, and that's fine with me. I have friends from high school, and I'm also really close with my family, so I didn't really feel the need to form friendships with people at school. But coming to Chicago, I really wanted to make friends this time because I'm living in a new city. I want to pursue fashion as a career. I feel like I really need to build community. And the crazy thing is that reaching out and actually making time for people really does work, which I kind of had a feeling it would. It slightly makes me uncomfortable because I am so used to just hanging out by myself all day. But now I actually have people that I want to hang out with. Highlight of last week was that I went to a fashion show that was being held at the Orchestra Center, which, if you know me, fashion and classical music together. So those are some positive updates in my life. And while I have all of these positive things going on one hand in my life, there's just this nagging feeling in the back of my head constantly. This feeling of impending doom, a general feeling of fear and anxiety all the time. So that's where I'm at right now. From what I've gathered from talking to other people, is that they all have this feeling of impending doom as well. This may sound stupid because I feel like it is kind of a very basic thought to have, and it's also possibly coming from a place of privilege because I did have a nice childhood and I am close with my family and I never hurt for anything. I always had food on the table. You know how people who survive really horrible things sometimes develop survivor's guilt? I feel like I kind of am living with that, but it's not really survivor's guilt. It's more of like, I was so blessed and I don't know why I was so blessed and other people are not so blessed, and I'm not really sure how to do anything about it. Like I said, I'm studying fashion, which studying any art career, studying it all, being able to go to school is a privilege in itself. But to go to study fashion, I'm just constantly reminded of how dumb it seems and kind of is. I don't know, I'm still kind of grappling with the idea of going to school to study fashion. Because on one hand, I think I was literally born like wanting to be a fashion designer. But I also look at the world around me and I'm like, why would anyone be a fashion designer? Fashion is the stupidest, most superficial thing I could ever think of doing. I am the most self-centered person to ever exist on planet Earth, which is definitely an overstatement, I know. And I do want to find a way to use fashion to help, because it's a form of art and you can always use art to promote change. And also, everyone interacts with fashion every single day, unless you don't wear clothes. But fashion is the most interacted with art form and form of self-expression that there is, because everyone has to wear clothes. But the fashion industry is also arguably one of the worst industries to exist on planet Earth. It's horrible for the environment, it makes people feel horrible about themselves, and it's also incredibly superficial, which I'm not saying all fashion designers are like awful people, like they are artists. And some of them are trying really hard to use their platforms and privilege to do something other than make a viral runway moment. But I have been really grappling with these feelings since every day as I'm walking to school, I pass by homeless people because I'm downtown in the city of Chicago. Of course I'm gonna see homeless people. And I've seen many homeless people before. This is not my first time living in a city and interacting with homeless people on a daily basis. But it's definitely a very weird feeling to walk by people, especially now because it's freezing in Chicago right now, but walk by people who have nothing. They have like a blanket and a cardboard box, and no one even like makes eye contact with them or says hi to them. They're treated as less than human beings. And I just walk past them just like everyone else does, and I go to class and I learn about clothing. It's just a little bit insane to me, and I'm not sure like what to do about it. I do think the first step is to treat them like humans, to not ignore them, but some of them are scary. There was one man I made eye contact with who was completely naked and jacking off. So that freaked me out a little bit. One cool thing about Chicago is that I just saw, I mean, who knows if this is true or not, because I never know if anything on the internet is true anymore, which I haven't for years, and is part of the reason I try not to get too emotionally invested in certain things that I read on the internet, because who even knows if they're true. But at the same time, I want to stay like informed about what's going on in the world. One cool thing that I have seen, and I hope is true, is that apparently Chicago ice raids are not going as well as planned, because apparently the people here are a little too educated on their own rights for the raids to be going as successfully as some people thought they would. So that's some good news. But then that also brings up another thing that I've been kind of not struggling with, but just thinking about, is the fact that US citizens are supposedly being detained just because they speak a different language, which, to be honest, I think we all knew this was going to happen, even though sources said only horrible criminals who happened to be illegally here were going to be targeted. It's kind of just everyone being targeted, including US citizens who speak more than English, which I just think is insane because all I want to do is to be able to speak another language, because my dad is from Mexico and I wish I did speak Spanish, and I didn't learn as a kid, and I'm now 24 years old and I'm like, well, now is the time. I just got a little kid's book from the library all in Spanish, and I'm gonna go through and start with trying to translate those and kind of move up, and I'm just really trying to figure out how I can teach myself Spanish. And then there's people who are being detained for speaking Spanish, which is just insane to me. And then that's another thing that I think about is, like, is there a way to help these people? And I feel like I just keep spending every day trying not to get emotionally invested into all the horrible things happening in the world, because there are a lot. We all know that there are a lot of horrible things going on in the world at all times. But that in itself is a privilege, to be able to stay detached from what's going on because it's not directly affecting me. And I know I'm not the only one feeling like this, because literally everyone that at least I personally associate with, feels the exact same way. I went through a really heavy political phase in 2020, as did a lot of people, I think. And I went to a few protests and I was very vocal online about all of my opinions. But now looking back, I think about like how riled up and upset I would get over these things, and I would speak out on them, and I would try to go to protests because I thought that was gonna help. But I really question, did it actually do anything? Can we actually do anything? I'm getting anxious sitting here talking about this. Now I must calm down by talking about something more positive. My first day at my fashion internship was yesterday. For those of you who didn't watch my last video, I kind of vlogged the process of how I was able to secure this. But basically, I am interning for the Chicago Joffrey Ballet, which, if you know me, I love ballet, and I was a ballet dancer when I was a little kid. I did earn my point shoes, so that's a fun fact about me, but then I immediately quit after I earned my point shoes, so that's another fun fact about me. But anyways, my first day was yesterday, and it was a stressful one, I'm not gonna lie. I went in, they had me roll some fabric at first, and even that was slightly stressful because I want to go in, and I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, okay? I feel like I took maybe 20 minutes max to roll these fabrics, and I felt good about that. It was easy, and then they gave me my next task, and it was to sew up some tank tops. They were already all cut out. I just had to serge the edges. And any of you who have serged fabric before, or haven't serged fabric before, you know, or now I'm telling you, that serging is stressful, for me at least. I don't know how it is for other people, but every time I have ever used a serger, it has been a stressful experience. And I have only used at-home sergers, so they're not as good as the industrial ones, and they're not as fast as the industrial ones. Anyways, I used an industrial serger yesterday for the first time in my life, and I used that industrial serger for 2.5 hours. They weren't perfect, I'll tell you that. I really think the problem came from me not being able to speak up and just ask, hey, can I have some pins to pin this fabric together? Because I was working with dance fabric, so extremely slippery and stretchy fabric with a serger that goes like really, really fast. So most of those 2.5 hours that I spent serging up those tank tops was just me trying to hold the fabric together with my fingers. I kept thinking to myself, I should ask if they have pins. I should ask if there's an easier way to keep this fabric together. Every time I tried a different method of holding the fabric together, it would work once and it wouldn't work the second time, and the fabric just kept moving, and I was going a little bit insane. I was sitting there and I was thinking, I had a vision of myself getting up and walking out and leaving and never coming back. Of course I'm not going to do that, because fashion is what I've wanted to do my whole life, and this is something that I want to do. I want to learn how to use a serger with tricky fabric, but I should have just spoken up. I will say, I do think I did a pretty good job for how difficult it was to work with that fabric, but the edges did not match up perfectly on most of them, because while I was holding the fabric, it would stretch, so then it would be like the tiniest bit off. But luckily, they were just tank tops that like go under a jacket, which I feel like that's why they gave that project to me anyways, because I would have had to like severely mess it up for them to be unusable. And now I'm comfortable using an industrial serger, so at least I got that out of the experience. But I definitely learned my lesson on just ask if I feel like I have a question or need some clarification. And I will take this newfound knowledge into my second day next week. I'm gonna take a quick look at my list of talking points. Where was I? This bullet point reads plane crash, bird flu, veganism, eating disorder. So the idea around that thought process right there was, I'm assuming most of you saw the news story that that military helicopter ran into aircraft and basically everyone's dead, which is just another example of an awful news story that's going around right now on top of the bird flu, because apparently that's spreading. It just kind of got me thinking again about the factory farming industry, which I already went through a whole veganism factory farming phase in high school, and it like really tore me apart for a while because the farming industry is also one of the worst industries to exist on planet Earth. I try not to get too into that because, again, it's just like staying emotionally uninvolved from things that I have no control over. Am I still vegan? No, because I don't actually think that being vegan is super healthy. At least it wasn't for me the way I was doing it. But on one hand, I did initially turn to veganism because I was trying to recover from an eating disorder, and that felt like the safest route to like go from not eating at all to like selectively eating. Plus, for those of you who also had eating disorders or were on the eating disorder side of the internet, you know Freely the Banana Girl. And she, along with a lot of other people, marketed veganism as basically like a magical diet to keep you skinny all the time. Anyways, me personally, I'm still trying to decide if I think it's ethically like right to eat another living creature, but then plants are also living creatures. So it's like you really can't eat anything that didn't have life. Do I think it's ethically okay to eat meat from factory farming? Technically no, but at the same time, like factory farmed meat is cheap for a reason, and people don't have money and groceries are expensive. On the topic of eating disorders, I've known for a long time that beauty standards and body standards are complete bullshit. But at the same time, and I know I'm not the only one, I still want to fit them. That's the crazy thing, but that's why it all gets us, because we all know we're being lied to. There's so many things I could say about the beauty industry and the fashion industry and the factory farming industry. There's so many different pieces to it all, but mainly right now I'm really interested in the aspect that beauty is basically just another form of currency, and that basically you're not ugly, you're just poor is kind of true. I've also been thinking about how it's just so incredibly uncomfortable just to like be alive, like to have a body. Like I'm sitting right now, my ankles hurt from sitting on the ground. My back always hurts. I don't know about you guys, I'm 24 and my back hurts like almost every single day unless I sit down and do yoga, which I've been trying to do every single day because it does help the back pain a lot. Body hair, sweat, just fluctuations in temperature in general are uncomfortable to me. Lots of textures can be uncomfortable. Situations can be uncomfortable. Me personally, I was born into a life of privilege, so my life really hasn't been that uncomfortable aside from the self-consciousness of it all. It's really weird to be alive and to grapple with these things on a daily basis. I just feel like being uncomfortable is like one of the sole purposes of our life here as humans. Like we just really wanted to make ourselves uncomfortable. At least, I mean, okay, now we're gonna get into religion and spirituality. I'm not really interested in any type of organized religion, but I also do believe in some sort of higher power. And in my mind, I'm probably gonna sound crazy to some people now, but in my mind, my personal theory is that every single human, like we're all a soul, we never die. Our bodies, I mean, energy probably will die at some point, like when everything just goes and it's gone, you know? Before that happens, we are just souls constantly living different lives, trying to teach ourselves things. Having a body is what separates us from other souls. And then when our bodies die, we return back to this collective soul being. And the reason we like to come and live in a body, even though it's horrible and uncomfortable, it's also like you get a lot of good things out of being a human too, depending on what kind of life you were born into. But being able to experience love and kindness and fun and happiness, and as humans we all have this sense of individuality and can kind of curate who we are as people and explore ourselves. But if we are part of a collective, we are all together. And I also do think that in the collective we already kind of have all of the answers to the universe, or maybe we don't, and that's why we keep coming down to Earth or possibly other planets, who knows, to try to teach ourselves lessons about what the universe is and what life is. A lot of you probably think I'm crazy now, but sorry, that's just my personal opinion. I think everyone has the right to believe what they want to believe. I'm just gonna finish up my eyeliner, and then I think this look is done and this video is about to be over. Definitely went on a bunch of different tangents throughout this. I just hope that some of what I said was possibly relatable and made some people feel less alone. I'd love to hear anyone else's kind of thoughts on any of these topics. Okay, I think the makeup look is done. Final makeup look. I feel like it's kind of giving bruise. This video was a little bit of an experimental video. I don't usually sit down and like put my raw thoughts and feelings on the internet, so hopefully I don't get cooked for this. But if I do, no publicity is bad publicity. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I usually post fashion, sewing, and travel content, so if you're interested in that, you can check out my channel. And also, if you enjoyed these ramblings, you should probably subscribe and let me know in the comments, because I'll make more like this if people want it. I definitely have more thoughts, but I feel like that's probably a good stopping point for this video. I will see you next time. Bye!